everyone, welcome to my video all about mortgages, being a first-time buyer and how we got our house, which blows my mind that I'm actually in this position talking to you about our first house. I remember when I started this YouTube channel, I was doing videos on what's in my school bag. So I feel like in 8 years, I've come a long way and I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about this topic. I have to start by saying that I felt so much pressure to do this video and to get it right, and it's taken me a lot of planning, and I've actually got loads of notes. So I've written, I think there's about 5 pages of notes here because there's so much I want to get through to you today. I'm obviously not the spokesperson for all things mortgages, and there are so many layers and so much depth to buying a house. There's lots of different outcomes and I'm not a professional, so please seek professional advice. I've spent all year trying to learn everything that I can. I've absorbed as much as possible. I've watched videos, listened to podcasts, read lots of books. I've read loads of websites, and if you do a little bit of digging, there are some amazing tools and resources out there for you. So I will leave some links in the description that you can go and do your own research on things. But a lot of people ask me for my own opinion, my own story, and just in an explanation of a little bit about mortgages and being a first-time buyer. So I have actually bought my house with my boyfriend Benji. We've been together 2.5 years. He's 24 and I'm 25, and we are so grateful that we're in this position. We know that buying a house was one of our biggest life goals, and we were so excited that we were able to do it this year. I can't believe I'm sat here saying I'm a homeowner. Like, I was renting a flat only a few years ago by myself, and I didn't think that I'd be in this position. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video and for all your support. If you have been on my journey with me for many years, or if you're brand new and you've never seen me before, then hello. My name is Brogan and I do lots of travel and lifestyle content here on my channels. I make weekly vlogs where I document our life and film myself daily, also including a lot of our renovations for our house. We have a beautiful 1930s detached house. It's stunning, 3 bedrooms in Bournemouth, and we love living down south on the coast. We're very proud of our house and very excited for the future and calling something our own. So it's really exciting renovating it right now. If you want to go and see a bit more of that, then you can watch the weekly vlogs. I also have a home Instagram account. It's Brogan Tate Home. I'll leave that link below for you as well. When I asked on Instagram for questions and things that you wanted me to cover in this video, one of the biggest things that came up was, where do I even start? A lot of people feeling very overwhelmed with the process and maybe the saving part of it. And I feel like I could probably do a whole video on money saving tips and advice and things I've done over the years. I do want to just recommend you this book. This has been such a big game changer for me personally. I've spent, like I said, all year looking at different things, but this book was amazing. It's called Money by Laura Whatley. I think that's how you say her surname. And it's just amazing. It has everything that you will need in terms of adulting and finances. And like, for example, even if you're renting right now, there's ways on renting, saving, investing, pensions, insurance, money and love, and money and well-being as well, which I actually really liked those sections. So do recommend that. But I thought I would give you 5 tips on things that you can do to kickstart your journey into getting a house, or things that you can start doing to help you get into a better financial position, and things that worked really well for me. So my first one is actually address your finances. Take time to look through your statement, your itemized bill, where you're actually spending your money. I think it's so easy to just kind of push it aside and ignore it and not look at it, and you just see the balance and you just, like, I don't know, for me for a long time I used to like panic and stress about money, and it was only until I actually addressed my finances and saw, like, looked at my salary, how much I could afford to save, looking at my money, where I'm spending, and then what my priorities were, which leads me nicely on to number 2, which is create a budget plan. This is basically, get yourself a spreadsheet and look where you're spending your money. Things that are coming out every month, subscription services, your bills, your gym membership, your phone bill, your food, like how much you're spending on food. Like, really take it down to like the nitty-gritty of how much you are actually spending and how much you can afford to save, and a budget plan really helped me get on that journey. Number 3 is to just start saving. Even if you can only put 20, 25 pounds into a savings account, you have started saving. And for me, that was actually the hardest hurdle, because I kept getting myself in a cycle of saving a little bit and spending it, and never advancing much in my savings. I never really saw like a lump sum of money. It was only when I decided I wanted to buy my own car and I had a goal of £5,000 to pay off the car that I really took it quite seriously, and I just started, and I did that whilst I was also renting by myself and paying for bills and things. So it is possible if you really put your mind to it, which is a lot easier said than done, but I was in a position once where I just couldn't even, it was all cloudy. I just couldn't even like get myself in a good headspace with it. But number 4 is to get your credit score up. If you don't know what a credit score is, do a little bit of research. This will impact you when you are wanting to take out finance or you want to get a mortgage. Your credit score is important. You need to check if you're registered on the electoral roll properly. If you go and vote, like make sure your name and your address is all correct. You need to see how you can improve your credit score. For me, I had my own contract, my phone contract. If you don't have yours in your own name, like start doing things like that. I had finance on a car since I was age 19, and this really helped me with my credit score because it proved that I could pay off a monthly payment. And I also have a credit card. I've had that since I was 21, and that is where I basically just put like 100 quid on every month, and then it goes out on a direct debit every month at the beginning of the month. So I'm really good with managing that. I never ever put too much on it, so and I keep an eye on how much I owe on it, so it does really help, and I really do recommend it. I have used Experian and ClearScore. They both have apps and they both have really good resources on their website, so I do recommend going and looking at those. And last but not least, this one is a bit universal and I know it won't apply to everybody, but know your industry and know how you can advance in your own career. Don't be afraid to look at roles where you can earn a bit more, or asking for a pay rise if you haven't had one for a long time. Or is there a training course you can do which might excel you in a different position in your industry or company? For me, I'm self-employed, so I had to look at my streams of income and making some savvy business decisions. How much can I charge for things, and letting go of a management company and taking on the responsibilities of what they were doing in order to be able to earn more money so that I could therefore save more money down the line. So I think it is something to look at and something that worked for me. But I mean, like I said, these are 5 very generic overall things that you can start doing right now to help you. So I do hope that helps. And if you have any like further advice you want to give to other people, leave it in the comments below. The next section is circumstances, and I want to highlight here that I am so unbelievably proud of myself and so grateful that I'm in a position to be able to buy a house at the age I am. I'm 25, Benji's 24, and when we met each other, we both knew we wanted to live together, and we both had this goal of wanting a house. Some of our friends are actually getting married and having children before they buy, so everyone's circumstances and financial, priorities are in different places, but for us the house was a big one. I'm very sorry, the sun is like doing its thing. So we have actually, number 1, decided to do everything 50-50, but there are a lot of people actually that do things split proportionally. I really recommend Refinery 21. Almost can't say it. Lots of people giving tips and advice on money in there, and that really helped me, and I learned a lot about proportional spending and splitting of bills and deposits. So yeah, go and check out that page. I'll link that below with everything else and the book and everything. So that's something to note. We're doing everything 50-50. Number 2 is that I did rent for almost 2 years, but then I moved into Benji's family home, and that really helped me save because my rent was so expensive. Living alone by the seaside, it was beautiful and I never regret it, but yeah, I have managed to save a lot more since obviously moving from rented. But I have always contributed, even when I lived in my parents' houses. Like, I paid rent since I was age 18 at both my mum's and my dad's, and I have always been able to save. I've worked since I was 15 part-time, went into full-time work at 18, and I have always been good at saving in terms of if I have a goal, looking back, I have always been able to just get there in the end, even if it meant taking up an extra part-time job. Obviously, moving into family home situation was a really perfect circumstance, so I just wanted to highlight that. Number 3 is neither of us have any debt. we never went to uni, and so I think not going to uni gave us 3 years of advancing in our careers and working full time over some of our friends who obviously then got degrees and are going on to do amazing things, but it gave us 3 years to be able to save as well. So we don't have debt, and I can't advise on paying off debt. The only debt I have right now is paying my like tax bill that's due in January. It kind of feels like debt to me, but it's not. I mean, I have a deadline for that one, so you know what I mean. I don't have any debt, so I can't advise on that one. Number 4 is the area that you actually live. So for us, we are in Bournemouth, down south, like I said. Different parts of the UK, it's cheaper to live. This is not a secret. Obviously, if you live in London or just outside of London, it is really expensive, and house prices vary across the UK. And the last thing is that I do have a good salary. I am self-employed, so saving for me was very different to a lot of my friends and how they save. But I knew that in order to get to my savings goal, I was gonna have to do 2 things: either earn more money or save better. And I basically did both. And that is how I got to where I was in a position to be able to save for my half of our deposit. A lot of people ask me, how long does it take to save for a deposit? How long is a piece of string? Like, I cannot answer that. It totally depends on your circumstance. And for me, my business excelled really well. Those decisions I made a few years ago really paid off for me. It was totally scary, but it all worked out in the end. And I just want to say now that some people don't need very long, other people need years and years and years. So please just be respectful of the fact that the time it takes to save for chunks of money is so different for everyone, and I can't sit here and give you a definitive answer on that one. But they were my personal circumstances, so please be respectful of that. And I will also say now at this point that I'm not going to be disclosing my own salary, our house value, or how much we put down as a deposit. I've got a whole section on deposit I am going to run through with you, but I have to have some boundaries. I feel like there's some things that I don't feel I need to disclose, and those like numbers are no one's business, so please be respectful of that as well. I can't give you like all those details. It's just not fair. Like, I don't feel like I have to share everything. Before we move on, I also just wanted to talk about a couple of tips that I did on my own saving as well. So yeah, addressing my finances, I talked about that, and making some business decisions. But things like I kept my car. I paid off my car and kept it. I have one of the cheapest cars on the road. I don't have to commute. I don't have expensive travel fares. I do go to London a lot, but it's nothing like people pay for like a season fare on a ticket on a train. My car is cheap to run, and I work from home, so I don't spend a lot on fuel. And then 2 things that I did personally to be able to get to this position is, the first one is I changed my mindset on money. I started listening to podcasts, and I follow the law of attraction and believing money like flows to me, and I give myself very specific goals. I truly educated myself on the whole like world of mortgages, and I feel like that really helped me. And also just discussing it with parents and friends that have also been through it, and having this really healthy relationship with money, not in fear of it, and being able to discuss finances openly with my best friends. This really helped me, and I'm very grateful for the support of some of my friends who are happy to be able to like support me. There were some weeks where I did things like a spending diary, just so I could like focus that week on where I was excessively spending, and having that relationship with my money has really helped me, and I just wanted to highlight that. And then the last, and probably the most important one of all, is how I actually saved, which a lot of people ask me about. And basically, I have a bank account. So I've got my personal account, I've got my business account, I have the credit card, I have a savings account in my personal, I have a savings account in the business, and I had, I think, another savings account. I had a few because I just kept moving money. So the business, I was moving for like tax purposes, and then I was moving stuff for my car, I was moving for emergency funds. I had my own like bubble of one bank account with all of my different accounts going around, and I've had this set up for a few years now. My mum supported me in setting up my first savings account when I was saving for my car, and yeah, this worked for me for a while. But in order to get me like leveling up to saving like more than I ever have before, I sat down with Benji's family, and they actually recommended to me that I get NS&I bonds. Bonds is something I had never even considered. I had no idea how they worked. To be honest, I thought bonds and shares and stocks, I was like, no idea. But the NS&I bonds is a really incredible way of saving. And if you don't know what it is, again, go and do your own research. But essentially, it's a way to save money. And instead of earning interest like you would in a savings account, you're put into a draw every month with the potential to win money. I won more money whilst my money was in my NS&I bonds than it would have in a savings account. I will talk about the Help to Buy in a minute because I know that is on people's like lips. Not being able to see it really helped me, and obviously as a self-employed person I was earning money in chunks, so some months I couldn't afford to save anything, and then other months I'd get paid for like 4 different jobs, and I'm like, oh okay, so I need to pay da 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 da, and I'm gonna save da 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 da. So you get the idea. The NS&I bonds was the perfect setup for me personally. I just wanted to touch on Benji because then we'll move on to the Help to Buy. So Benji had actually been saving for years and years and years and years. His family had very much set him up to earn his trade and work his way up as an electrician, and he's on a good salary and he's been saving for so long, and he was actually ready to buy his own flat or a small house when he met me. I had actually started my savings journey when I met him, not really with like a set goal of like buying somewhere necessarily, and then when I met him I instantly knew that I could see a future with us, and our future was a house, and so it was always a goal since the very beginning that we wanted to buy somewhere together. It just made so much more sense. So he held off from buying something straight away when we met, and we obviously stayed here for a while, and he's been saving. He has also been improving his own circumstances with his own credit rating, and by the time we were ready to buy, we were in a good position. But he did have the Help to Buy, so let's talk about the Help to Buy scheme. My neighbours have decided to start gardening. I've been trying to film this video for weeks. I've spent all morning getting ready for it, and now they start gardening. Anyway, the next section I want to talk about was the Help to Buy ISA. You will hear a lot of people talking about this. Some of you might know what it is. Some of you might not have heard of it before. Some of you might not know what an ISA is, because neither did I a few years ago. But this is a government scheme that they're actually scrapping. As I'm filming this, it's like a month away until they're actually getting rid of it. So I don't want to dwell on this section too much because it will probably be like outdated by the time some of you watch this video. An ISA is basically an individual savings account. There are lots of different ones available. I'm not going to sit here and explain all the different ISAs and what they are. You can do your own research on that. Some people have been interested in the LISA or the Lifetime ISA. That's been quite popular at the moment. But I will link you the Help to Buy website below in case you're watching this within the week or a couple of weeks it goes live, because some of you might want to take advantage of Help to Buy before it goes. It can be extremely beneficial to a lot of people. For me it wasn't, because my money wouldn't have matured enough in Help to Buy with the amount I save in chunks, like when I get paid for a whole job. And a Help to Buy, you can put up to £200 a month into an account, I believe, which Benji had been doing for a very long time. And then the government will basically help you and top up your savings. So if you save 12.5 grand, I think you can get up to 15 grand, something like that. So you can basically benefit from the bonus that the government offer. I'm not good at explaining this, so I will leave the link below and you can check it out. There are actually different types of Help to Buys as well, and there's a whole bit on their website with a calculator and explaining how it works. So you can go check that out. But the one thing I wanted to mention here is that there is a clause in it where you can only benefit from using the Help to Buy if you're a first-time buyer, which we were, but also the value of the house had to be under 250,000 if you're outside of London, or up to the value of 450,000 if you're in London. Our house was worth more than that value outside of London, so therefore, because our house was worth more than that threshold, we couldn't benefit from it. So Benji couldn't use his bonus or get the bonus, and he still earned interest on his money in the Help to Buy ISA, but we didn't actually use it. So for all the people that ask us, did we have Help to Buy? Benji had it, I didn't. He couldn't use it anyway. He still got his money, he still earned interest, but was it the best savings for him? We don't know, but he obviously didn't know if he would be in a position, if he was buying his own flat, then yes, it would have been great for him. But obviously we ended up buying a house that was worth more money, so we didn't use it for that reason. The next section is different types of mortgages, which I don't even know where to start with this section. So I literally wrote down, not an expert. Guys, I'm not an expert on knowing all the different types of mortgages. I'm going to direct you to someone who is an expert. This is a PDF that I found ages ago. You need this. Everyone should download this. It's from Money Saving Expert. It's a guide to mortgages explained. It has everything you need, all the nitty gritty, because I would be here for so long if I try and explain different types of mortgages. It's got everything you need from like freehold versus leasehold, different types of mortgages available. For the sake of the video, my own personal circumstances, we have a freehold property, which means we own the land and the building. Obviously, if you're living in a flat, you might have a leasehold, which means you might have to pay maintenance to run that flat and that building, and you don't necessarily own the whole building, you just own your flat, which is what my brother has for him. So everyone's different in that one, so go and research that. We have a repayment mortgage at a fixed rate for 5 years. Our mortgage duration is 35 years long, but we do have the option to overpay so that we can potentially pay off our mortgage a bit quicker. And we put down 10% deposit as well. So 10% of the value of our house as the deposit, which is the next section I want to talk about. So yeah, definitely go and check out that PDF. And I'm not so technical with this one, so I only went with the advice of our mortgage broker, which I'll get onto in a minute, don't worry. I'm not going to give you all the figures of our deposit as I've explained, but we put down 10% of the value of our house, so half that each, 5% each, and we actually saved more than this before we went to our mortgage broker. And what we learned is that by putting down a bigger deposit, it didn't actually make a difference on our monthly repayments unless we went to 20% of the value of the house. So it was actually better for us to just give 10% deposit, and our monthly repayment didn't change too much. So I hope that makes sense. That's something neither of us learned. We just thought the more deposit you had, the better it was, and that isn't actually true. Something we learned along the way anyway. So we actually had a little bit of extra money in our pot after we gave our deposit, because we didn't obviously give as big a deposit as we thought we might need. I hope that helps with the deposit side of things. Again, we've done everything 50-50, and I'm going to talk about the timeline of events for us both in a minute. I just had to get all of this stuff down first. So the next section is our first steps, and this leads nicely into the timeline of events for us. So I have a lot of questions on when are you ready? When do you know you're ready? When do you start? When do you see the bank? When do you see a broker? Blah, blah, blah. There's a load of questions on this section. So this is just my personal experience and what Benji and I did. So at the beginning of 2019, I actually had my finances ready, and I felt pretty ready to have my share of the deposit. So we decided to actually go to our bank. I bank with one bank, Benji has a few different. So we went to the one where his Help to Buy was, and we basically sat down with a specific mortgage person at the bank. We booked in this meeting with her, and she went through our accounts, and she talked to us about our salaries, and she also gave us a rough figure of what we could afford to borrow. So this gave us a rough idea of the value of a property that we could afford to start looking at, because we were looking on Rightmove and we didn't really know what we could afford. So that's what we did, but the only thing holding me back was having another year of my accounts, also known as like my books for being a self-employed person. So financial tax year was coming up April 2019, and I wanted to just wait out a few more months, get the new tax year signed off, completed, and that essentially meant that I had fresh financial year paperwork to give with my best salary and my best year to date. So I had 3 years of accounts ready at that point. Some mortgage lenders will take 2 years if you are self-employed, but I did have 3, and I gave 3 to prove that my business was growing each year. So we started looking at houses at this point. So between waiting for the year to end for me, we did go and start doing a couple of house viewings, even though we knew we weren't in a position to buy, which is a little bit cheeky because I kind of felt like I was potentially wasting estate agents' time. But it really was important at this point we did this, because we needed to see what was on the market, what we could get for our money, because it's easy to look on Rightmove, but actually I wanted to physically see some houses. We didn't do a lot. We just went and saw, I think, a handful of houses at that point. And it was good for us. It was really, really good for us. So I'm pleased we did that. So the next section is our timeline of events, and in this part I'm going to cover our mortgage broker, house hunting, bidding for the house, solicitor, other things that came up in between completion and exchange, fees, basically some frequently asked questions. So this part will be a bit long as well, but we're going to get there. I told you I'm covering everything. So my tax year ended in April and I spent most of May and the beginning of June sorting out my finances, and the government did a making tax digital scheme and I had to move all of my finances into a digital software that I now use, an accounting software. I did this with my accountant. It was very stressful. I had to have all my receipts together and I was so unorganized and quite stressed about it all, but now I'm in such a better position. I feel so much better about it. So hopefully next year in April 2020 I can just click a button and my accounts can be submitted. But I spent a little while sorting them out and getting my finances together. I had to be so confident that I knew exactly where I was, and we ended up being able to look at my profits and my actual salary. That was one of the proudest moments this year. Like, there's been a few, but that was a moment where I was like, I'm seriously ready to buy a house. Like, I couldn't believe it. I actually feel really emotional about it because I did that myself, like my business, and I earned that myself and generated those sales and worked really hard, and I was just, yeah, it was so exciting for me. A lot of you will remember that time if you watch the weekly vlogs. It was a bit stressful, but we got there in the end. So my accountant and I were ready in about middle of June, beginning of June, and she recommended a broker. She has 3 children, they'd all bought houses, and she said, use a mortgage broker, don't go direct to your bank. You need a mortgage broker to do the work for you. Now, I had no idea what a mortgage broker did, but essentially they are a qualified and regulated mortgage advisor. In the guide that you can download from Money Saving Expert, whatever it's called, they wrote down that they can save you trawling through deal after deal to find the cheapest mortgage for your own circumstance. So you don't have to use a mortgage broker if you don't want to. You can obviously do that research yourself if you're confident and prepared to do the work, but a mortgage broker is, in my opinion, the best way to do things to get you the best mortgage. Our mortgage broker was a lady called Jo, and she was absolutely amazing. She worked for a company, and called her up and I said, you've been recommended to me by my accountant. They were good friends. It just turned out, by the way, that my mortgage broker, our solicitor, and the estate agents all knew each other, and I think that's because I obviously use them all locally on recommendation, and this helped me so much. And I've heard horror stories, and like my best friend's flatmate, she is currently trying to buy a house, and I know that she's having trouble after trouble after trouble with every single like person along the line, and I had nothing but a really incredible experience. Like, everyone was so good, on the ball, no one was dilly-dallying. And I just want to say this now, that I know I was very blessed in that situation. Our mortgage broker was a lady called Jo. In fact, if you want to reach out to her, I don't know, I think it's probably better that you use people like you know or recommend or use locally, but you could use her if you wanted to. I mean, I'll leave her below. I'll send her some business if you go and if you want to speak to her. But mortgage brokers work in 2 ways in terms of charging for their time. So either they will charge you or they earn commission from the mortgage if you go ahead and use them. So basically that is how our mortgage broker worked. She gave us an hour of her time in person, and she was so wonderful, and she told us what paperwork to bring. A lot of people asked me, what paperwork do you need? She asked us for our ID, so we brought our passports. I think we brought in all our proof of our savings and how much we had, Benji's last 3 statements, and my 3 years of paperwork to prove our salaries. So we bought everything that she asked for, everything we could. We were just like, have it all. She photocopied it for us, sat down with us for a whole hour. She explained everything. She taught us about interest rates, different mortgages, what was best for us. She was absolutely amazing. That hour we had with her was one of the most beneficial points of getting the house, and I'm forever grateful for her, and I've constantly emailed her and I sent her flowers, and I was so happy that she was able to support us, and I asked her so many questions between that point right up until the end. I was constantly asking her questions about our mortgage, and she was insanely positive and happy and quick on response, and very, very grateful for her. So anyway, she went through our paperwork, and at this point she gave us a new figure of how much we could actually borrow. So don't forget, we roughly knew back in January. We're now in June, and we now had a new figure, so it was a little bit more than we thought we could originally afford, because obviously we'd submitted my new tax return, and this was the point where we were like, wow, it's happening. Like, we can actually get a mortgage. And then it felt even more real. Like, sitting there with Benj, we were so chuffed, and we came back from that appointment, and obviously I wasn't vlogging any of this, but we came back and we were like, we're gonna get a house, we need to book things in. So on the Friday we had a viewing for the house, And we did have other viewings on the Saturday morning as well, but by the Friday we had found the house. Like, we obviously had seen a few houses prior, but this one was so perfect. So this is the next part, the house hunting, the fun bit. For us, we actually made a list of things that were an absolute essential because we were taking it a lot more seriously now, and we'd seen a bunch of houses that none of them were right anyway. I was a bit worried we might fall in love with something and then we weren't ready, but nothing was worth us fighting for. And so things like parking was important for us. We wanted potentially 2 bedrooms, you know, a little garden because I eventually would love a dog. I can't wait to get a doggy. And, you know, these were things that were high priorities for us. We saw a few where Benji saw potential in it and I absolutely was not happy. So we ended up finding our house, and when we actually had a couple more viewings the next day, but I knew it was the one. Like, walking in, I could envision us walking around the house like we were ghosts. Like, I could see us walking around living in this house, and it was not our taste. It definitely was a bit of a doer-upper. It needed wallpaper stripping and it needed a whole new bathroom upstairs, and I was like, this is it. This is it. I love it. And he loved it. And we actually brought his mum with us on that viewing. Just so happened she was available. So that was even better because we had one parent with us who could come and see it. And it felt right. It just felt right. So we slept on it. And the next morning, on the Saturday morning, we actually had 2 more appointments for other houses. Neither of them were obviously as good as what we wanted as our house. So we actually put a bid in, an offer in. And this is the next section of the house, which is the bidding part. But before I go into that, we did get a second viewing on it on the Monday. So we saw the house on a Friday, we bid on it on the Saturday morning, which I'll go into, and then we did go for a second viewing. Even though our offer had been accepted, we went and viewed it again with my mum and John, my stepdad. So we wanted the opportunity for my side of my family to have seen it as well. Even though offer had been accepted, we knew we could always pull out in case one of the family members was like, absolutely not. But we were pretty confident it was the one. So anyway, bidding. So the bidding for the house. So the house had been on the market for like a month, and the price had dropped a little bit since it was first put on the market. It was obviously like priced way too high. And we came in like fairly low, too low. We knew we were way too low because obviously the point is that we wanted them to come down again and us to come up. And we called the mortgage broker and we were like, we found a house, and she started working on our mortgage in principle, which is essentially a mortgage offer that says we will give you a mortgage if the following lines up. So if your credit score is right and you have the deposit and blah, blah, blah. But mortgage in principle is basically like provisionally offering you the mortgage. So she started working on that, and she recommended to us how much we could max ourselves to at this point. And then we both agreed together a price that we were happy to go up to. I think we went between prices a few times, but on the Monday they basically offered us like a counter offer of what they were happy to do, and we accepted at that point on the Monday. And I think they were so keen to have us because we have no chain, because we live at home, and they had no chain either. Their circumstances are that they were married, getting divorced and moving into separate rented accommodations. So they were pretty keen to move out quite quickly. Note that, because when it came to moving out, she wasn't quick whatsoever, but we'll get to that point. So they were really keen to kind of get the deal done, and we agreed on a price and our offer was accepted on that Monday. So then we got a solicitor, which I don't really know if the order of us doing these things was quite the norm, but we didn't have a solicitor ready. And when the broker, basically Joe, she said to us, if they ask if you've got a solicitor, just say yeah, because you'll get one easily. At this point, I had to call my brother and say, who did you use as your solicitor? And he recommended a guy who was absolutely brilliant. So I was really happy with our solicitors. The company were lovely. They're actually local, like a 10-minute drive, which was perfect for me because I could just pop down there. It saved doing a lot of posting of paperwork. So they'd be like, please post this back to us, and I'd just drive straight down there and like hand deliver it all the time because I didn't want anything to get lost in the post. But yeah, so we used the same guy who did my brother's mortgage just a few months before. And at this point, I'd also say just go with like personal recommendations from family or friends. Solicitors, I mean, I went with one. I didn't vet around. I asked him roughly how much his fees were and asked for like a kind of a quote. He gave us what he roughly thought it might cost. He was like, obviously this totally depends. I was like, I know, I just need a rough figure. And it was within our budget of what we had roughly worked out solicitors' fees would cost. Don't forget, my brother had just done it, so I was kind of on this idea, especially with a lot of research and a guide. I knew how much he would probably cost us. So at this point, we agreed to work with a solicitor. He had some time available and he could work with us. He knew our broker, he knew the estate agents, everything was aligning. I was like, this is fantastic. Happy to work with you. We actually never met our solicitor. I spoke to him on the phone many times, but he had a few assistants and he had receptionists, and I would only really see them when I dropped paperwork off. I actually never met him face to face. So that was a bit weird, but not really. I didn't really need to go and see him. He just started cracking on with it and he was great. At this point, Benji and I also set up another joint account. We already had one with Monzo that we used for like food, eating out and household items and things, but we wanted a proper one with the bank. Not that a Monzo isn't a proper one, but you know what I mean? One that we could use with a bank. We ended up going with a bank account that offered us some really good perks. We were really happy with it. So we set it all up and put it in our names, and it was so official and proper, and we paid our solicitor out of that account with our first bit of money that we put into it. We paid the solicitor a deposit to get started on the work. So that is the solicitor and the process of that. So then we're going into like July at this point. It's been a couple of weeks, and the mortgage company went and sent somebody to go and do a survey. So the survey is basically where they go and check the house to see if it's worth the value that you're paying for it and it's not gonna fall down, essentially. So they go and do a thorough check, and they provide you with a report of kind of the results of the survey, if that makes sense. Now, at this point, we were asked if we wanted to do our own private survey as well. And because of the circumstances of the previous owners, they had only been in for 2 years. They had replaced the boiler and the double glazing and told us roughly the other things that came up from their survey. Because every time we went to visit the house, we actually met the owners, the old owners. And my mortgage broker said she didn't feel it was essential for us to go and do a private survey. The one that the mortgage company did was sufficient in our eyes. However, lots of people go and do a second survey, so that's totally up to you. Just as our circumstances, we felt like we didn't need to spend another £200 or £300 on a private survey, and that was a recommendation from the broker. The solicitor also felt the same. So yeah, it came back with a few bits and bobs, but nothing that we weren't aware of, so I was pretty happy. At this point as well, a lot of people's surveys come back and it's like, it came up with things like how close we were to like flooding and just everything about the house. It was very detailed and interesting. We also had things come up. So other things that came up at this point were we had to take out a couple of insurance policies. We had to get a chancel indemnity insurance. Don't ask me what this is. Something about churches needing repairs or something. I don't know. I paid for that. The solicitor told me we needed it. I also learnt about covenants and covenant insurance. We had to take that out, which the only way I was explained about it was basically like laws and rules on properties. So like, for example, my mum's house, she can't hang washing out the front of the house. There's certain covenants, I think that's how you say it, but correct me if I'm wrong. This is where I'm like not confident with the lingo. So we had to take out insurance policies for these things at this point. And we also started providing more and more paperwork. So they asked us to provide more bank statements and proof of our bonds. So anytime they asked for anything, I literally just like downloaded PDFs of my statements, of my bank. They started questioning my moving of money because obviously I'd moved money for a while. And then I had to prove my bonds and show where the money had gone. Nothing was out of the ordinary. I was more than happy to provide literally whatever they wanted. I was like, tell me what you want, I'll give it to you. So that was for both Benji and I. And my tip here is to just try and keep your spending down around this time. They're basically checking your accounts. Literally, I've heard stories of people where mortgage lenders have like flagged up individual things where people have spent a lot of money on like something. For example, if you go out to the pub every Friday night and you spend a lot of money, they might flag that as like, you know, can you afford your mortgage if this is your spending habits. It's a bizarre situation, but essentially you want to keep your accounts looking normal. So don't take out any finance at this point or buy anything excessive. Don't buy a new car or something in the process of like the bank, the mortgage company like going through your account. So yeah, we were asked to provide all this information, and that was fine. Now we get to exchange and completion. Now these are two words I didn't really understand the meaning of until we went through this process. So the exchange is a point of where the contracts get exchanged and the deposit is sent to the solicitor. Now, you exchange, and then the point between exchange and completion is where you get the keys. So exchange is contract, completion is keys. The average UK wait between these two is about 2 to 4 weeks. Bear that in mind. Some people can do it within a week or two. Most people will take about a month, I think, is what I've heard. And at this point, we started going back and forth because we found our very first hurdle. So we'd come all this way and found our first hurdle, and that was that the owners wanted 8 weeks between completion and exchange. I was pretty annoyed at this point because I wanted to get in. The quicker we could get into the house, the quicker we could start working on it, the quicker we could potentially be in by Christmas. I just wanted to get in as quickly as possible, basically. And they wanted 8 weeks. We tried to negotiate 6 weeks, and to be honest, it turned out they had holidays. We were going to LA, and we had Italy. So we had LA for 2 weeks in July, and then we had Italy at the end of September. And we basically caved in and said, fine, we will accept a date of the 30th of September. So we're like middle of July at this point, and we had to come to this agreement on a date because that date is set in stone, in my opinion. It's like set, and it's the date that everyone agrees on and is the day we get the keys. So this was the only time I felt some real frustration because I felt like it was unnecessary to ask for 8 weeks. I thought that they were wanting to move out quickly, but then she said she was looking for rented and wanted that time, and so I had to be respectful of the fact that that was her wish, and she had been so accommodating to us before, like up until that point. So I thought at that point, Benji and I just didn't want to fight a battle. It wasn't worth fighting for more time on that. We just said okay. So at that point, we were sent a contract, which I also want to note that we both sat down and read every piece of paperwork, every letter, every contract, every survey, everything that came to us. Benji and I read it together, and let me tell you, there were some evenings we were sat in bed and I was reading it out loud, or he read it out loud, and we were both going through it, and anything we didn't know, we flagged up. And we actually flagged up a few things that were like, what is that? Or we need to learn about that. You know, went through this massive contract and we signed it. And then a day later, we sent the deposit, which was a scary day, let me tell you. So I put my bonds, I removed my bonds out. They came into my current account, and I moved them from, so my savings essentially, and I moved my money from my savings account into our joint account, and Benji did the same. So we had all of our money together as our deposit in our new joint account, and it was in there for like a few hours, and then it was gone again to the solicitor. It was a scary day because I took responsibility for that one, and checking the bank numbers and reference, and oh my God, I was so nervous that I'd done it wrong, but it was all fine. So we sent the deposit, we sent the contracts, and we exchanged on the 25th of July. This is the day that we officially became the owners, in my opinion. Like, that was the day it was like, we own the house, and we celebrated. We told all our friends. We actually had a Big Potato Games party that night, like a games night that weekend, and we told all our friends, and it was so exciting. We texted everybody, we're like, we've bought a house, like crazy, crazy, crazy. The only other thing between exchange and completion at this point is I asked for a third viewing. There was one final person that was very important to me in seeing the house, and that was Benji's dad. He is, not only do I live with him here, but he's an incredible like handyman tradesman, and he was the one that was going to be taking on a lot of the renovation side of things with Benji and me, but I can't really do a lot of the structural bathroom side of things. So I wanted him to come and see it. We both did. It was unfortunate we couldn't time it so every single family member could see the house before we committed to it, but we knew that he was a very chill man, and we went and saw it in August. It was a bank holiday weekend, and we basically did some measurements because we wanted to order a sofa. We went round for an hour. We got 1 hour with the estate agent, and we also went at a time where the owners were on holiday, just because I wanted that privacy of being able to walk around every room freely without them being in the house, because we hadn't had that opportunity up until that point. So yeah, that's the only other thing I wanted to mention, is that we had a third viewing in August, and then obviously it was a waiting game until we got the keys. So the next part is the solicitor fees, and I got a lot of questions on this. So just before we completed, so about a week or two before we were due to get the keys, it was just before we went to Italy actually. Life was mad around this point, but we were sent our final bill from the solicitor, and I wrote down the things that this included. So we had fees on there. So the solicitor fees, that included conveyancing formalities, correspondence and attendances, whatever that means. Stamp duty, we had to pay that. First time buyers don't have to pay stamp duty up to a certain value on a house. Land registry searches and fees, local authority searches and fees, conveyancing searches, bank transfers, they charge you for moving money. And we also paid for the dining table, the fridge and the washing machine, which were the previous owners. We were buying it off them. We all agreed a price basically, and that also came out the solicitor's fees at that point, and the insurance policies that I mentioned. We had to pay for house and contents insurance before we moved in. This was something I didn't realise that we had to have, but as part of a clause in our mortgage, we had to be insured. I think that's pretty generic. You'd want to be insured anyway, obviously. Benji and I sat down one night. We got all of the answers to all the questions that the policy was asking us. That point was quite boring. It asked us things like the type of house alarm, the type of windows, the type of building, the type of bricks, and we had to fill out our home and contents insurance, and we ended up picking a certain company and paid for that. Something we were asked as well that I wrote down was if we wanted to be joint tenants or tenants in common. Something I didn't know what that meant, but again, it's in that PDF that I mentioned, but basically we went for joint tenants, which means if one person dies, the other one will get the house. We had to make that decision, but it was asked. It was something that was apparently very important, and I didn't know about that. Obviously, like I said, we had no chain either side. Most people have chains when they're selling houses. We did not have a chain. They had no chain. We had no chain. It is, I mean, a rare circumstance, but it was literally just us and them, and it made life so much easier, and I was very grateful for that. So a lot of people ask me questions on how does it work with a chain? I have no idea. I just know that you have to wait a lot longer usually, because chains do delay things. We're almost at the end. Some frequently asked questions I had as well were, is it scary having the responsibility of a mortgage? Yes, of course it is. Of course it is. But I paid a lot more in rent and bills by myself when I was in a flat on my own than I'm going to be doing for our mortgage. Plus I'm doing it with someone else. I know Benji is my partner. We do everything together. So it doesn't feel so scary having him by my side. He encourages me and supports me every single day to grow my business and follow my dreams. And I think if I have the same attitude I have had all year, then I think I should be okay. I know my finances so well. I know how much I have to earn every month to be able to afford all my basics, and I'm pretty confident about it. So yes, it's scary, it's a huge responsibility, but you know, if we're able to pay off some of our mortgage a little earlier at points along the way in our life, then great. But I feel like we're always gonna have a mortgage, but maybe not. One of the biggest questions I got asked is how long the process takes. And for us, it was only 4 months. It would have been even quicker if the owners had had less time between completion and exchange. It's not a quick process. These things take time, things get delayed, things happen. So I mean, again, how long's a piece of string? Everyone's situations are different. Oh my goodness, I think we're at the end. I feel like I don't think I've covered everything because there is just so many layers to this, but I really hope this has helped even one of you out there. Please let me know your own experiences buying your first house, or if you want to start, or just let me know. I love hearing from you. Like I said, I will also link everything you need in the description box. And if you're not subscribed to my channel already, please subscribe. I'm really hoping I can get to 100,000 subscribers one day, and then I can get that beautiful play button plaque and I can put it proudly in my new office one day. I'm envisioning it, I'm manifesting it, guys. So if you can help me get there, I'd be so grateful. Please share this video if it helps anyone, or you know anyone that might be interested, and I will see you again very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.